Good evening, and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My co-host, the marvelous Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour, over 5 years ago. And the idea was just to get some of his writer friends together and read each other's stories during the beginning of the pandemic when things were scary. Things can still be kind of scary. We've made a lot more author friends, and we've been back pretty much every Wednesday ever since. So tonight is no exception. We have two wonderful writers reading their own speculative fiction stories. Tonight's readers are Sonia Focke and Daniel Marcus. Welcome back to those of you returning, and welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. If you're here on Zoom, feel free to chime in on the text chat if you like. If you're joining us on YouTube, thank you. Feel free to enjoy the stories without the pressures of socializing. Although if you do want to leave a comment or a like or something, that does the heart good. Our first reader tonight is Sonia Focke, a longtime friend of Story Hour, who is calling in from the future, by which I mean Munich, by which I mean Germany. So this is quite valiant of her. She is literally
the next day here. Yes.
What's that?
It is the next day here, yes.
Exactly. She's in the future. So her bio doesn't say this, but clearly this means she is already a hero of legend. What her bio does say is that Sonia Focke is an Egyptologist living in Germany. She has showered with a scorpion, sailed on a Prussian torpedo boat, and defended a hill fort from a Viking, but her writing is her real passion. Her short stories have appeared in Windgraph, New Myths, Giganotosaurus, and Correo. She lives with a blacksmith and two Padawans and a whole host of imaginary friends. Sonia, welcome back.
Always good to be here.
Always good to have you. So, what do you have for us tonight?
I have a story that appeared in Correo in the Symbionsis edition in September. So it's not quite free to read yet, but actually I would appreciate it if you would buy the issue. It's great. There's Sharang Biswas in it. There's Premi Mohammed in it.
Premi Mohammed is in it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's a must-buy, everybody. Premi is literally one of the greats of our time.
Exactly. So, and if you buy it, they can continue paying us authors, which I think is pretty cool.
I dig the paying authors thing. Yeah. Did you know that there's been a direct correlation found out, like scientists have noticed this, between authors creating and authors getting paid for it? It's like, yeah, it's like getting paid for it, being able to make a living on it means they can spend more of the day on it. It's amazing. But now I am ready to be amazed by your story. Please.
So this started out as a story exchange on that hexagon organized. So you'd get a bunch of prompts from somebody, and in exchange you would give them a bunch of prompts, and then you'd send each other the stories. And among the prompts were jellyfish or cephalopod, talking cats, historical fiction, and below decks. And I was inspired by an actual minesweeper that existed in World War II. It was a Dutch minesweeper. You can check it. It's called the Abraham Cranston. So check it out, and you'll see what I made of it. Island Getaway. Oh yeah, there are some content warnings. There are mentions of battle, threat of bombing, and a description of a panic attack and disassociation. So if that's not for you, wait until Daniel starts talking. Overhead, the mycelium... Starting good? Overhead, the mycelium network lights up in waves of twinkling blue, coursing along the roots of our camouflage trees as I pound below decks, trying not to cry out as my right ankle and left pectoral spike in pain. The right ankle comes from a hole in RJS Fremantle's wooden decking where the camouflage's root system pierced through. The left pectoral comes from tiny needle-like claws attached to the kitten in my pocket. Wait, did I close the hatch behind me? Must have. Can I hear the monkeys? No, so it's closed. Or have they already gone silent? No time. I slam the switches next to the kitten room, then run to the galley, almost tripping as I climb through the door. Made it. I make a beeline to my assigned seat on the hard metal floor, ankle pounding. Okay. Checklist. Identify the monkey's overhead predator call? Check. Hit the right tree to activate the mycelium network for those below decks? Check. Close hatch? Check. I hope. Lock the kitten room and turn off the button board master switch? Check. Go to assigned place for air raid? Check. Only thing left is to deactivate the galley button. Scritches. Oh shit. Toothless must have... I scrabble at my pocket and get a mouthful of teeth on my finger from my trouble. It wasn't him. It's not Herc, the black and white on-duty below-deck soda today. He's lounging on Able Seaman Isla's lap, busy cleaning his single white sock. None of the other cats should be on duty except Lila, and she doesn't like the galley's metal floor, the piggy princess. Never mind who. Have to turn off the button board. If the patrol is already overhead... They say an adult Quetzalcoatlus can hear a dolphin squeal 20 feet underwater, and if they alert their pilots to take a closer look at the innocently floating island, one among a chain of hundreds of pretty tropical islands, and the pilots realize the gray and green of the ground is paint, and that between the swaying canopy is the command tower... I'm still not quite sure how Able Seaman Paul became Cat Duty Officer Paul. For a single giddy moment, I thought it was an actual officer rating, but it's just a job description. It might have been because Herc follows me around telling me about his day, or because Stead likes to ride on my shoulder, or because a random alley cat dropped her tiny black kitten onto my lap last shore leave, or more probably because Cat Duty Officer Odile died in the battle and there was no one without extra duty. But it means I feed the cats, and clean the litter boxes, and train tiny black kittens that ride in my breast pocket, and it also means that if an enemy pilot triggers the load in his Quetzalcoatlus's belly net onto Fremantle because a cat used the galley button board, it would be my fault. Not the fault of the monkeys that chewed through the wires connecting it to the master switch last time they escaped below decks. Mine. Heart pounding, I switch off the board. Just in time, too, as the creature presses the button down again. It is not a cat. It's a great speckled octopus the size of a dessert plate. It slides off the button and back on again. And again, more frantically. Finally, it sets itself right on top and starts pumping up and down like a miniature plunger, its color shifting red. What the living hells? The pests usually scatter to the bilges whenever there's an alarm. So why is this one still here? I try to catch someone's eye, but Isla is busy scratching a blissed-out Herc under his chin, scars still raw and red where falling pieces of hull had sliced off the last joints of her hand. The others are looking up at the tangle of roots that now make up most of the ceiling, faces gray and taut, as they wait for the brief burst of phosphorescent spores from the mycelium network, signaling that the monkeys and birds have gone back to making a racket on deck. The turned-off button isn't making a lot of noise, but if the octopus starts twisting at the button cover, it might break it. The Monkeys sometimes break the on-deck ones, and I've seen the pests unscrew pickle jars. Why pickle jars? No idea. But my duties include the upkeep of the button boards, so I carefully reach out and scratch it on its bulbous head. I mean, what the heck? The octopus wants scritches, it's getting scritches. It feels weird. Firm, but yielding. A little wet, not really slimy. And underneath that, velvety. It stops pumping and leans into my hand, squirming until my nails reach the right spot. Overhead, a Quetzalcoatl screeches. I bite my lip to keep the memories from rising too far. Pain in my ears from the concussive roar of the bombs, the acrid taste of smoke, the triumphant cries of Quetzalcoatluses. Have you ever heard a ship die? Our whole convoy died that day. Nothing more than columns of smoke, black against the horizon, and pinpricks of red plummeting down as our pterosaurs fell, their cries too far to hear. But RJS Adele, our sister ship, was little more than a sweep-wire's length away as metal groaned in agonized screams, the white-crested waves shrieking with the voices of escaped seamen. Some of those sitting here in cold, perspiring silence come from Adele. Some more from Smog, who died a day later as the first patrol caught up with us, just before the concussive force of a bomb displaced something in our engine. Before we became an island. We're still barely over complement. A clammy, nauseous feeling climbs up my throat, and my left thumb strokes Toothless the kitten's soft fur as he chomps on my index finger, and the right scratches the velvety wet octopus. Stroke, stroke, stroke to keep it all down where it belongs. The little octopus is also afraid, shrinking into my hand and turning the smooth white of the scritches button, complete with little black dots to imitate the writing. That's how good they are. We used to step on them all the time. Toothless, the little harridan, is not afraid of anything and keeps attacking my fingers. Another Quetzalcoatlus calls out. It's been 3 months. 3 months of arthritic nights running and day watches spent cooped up below decks, moored to look like an offshore island. 3 months of going silent whenever the mycelium network lights up as enemy air patrols scour the skies for us. 3 months of the deck above us slowly succumbing to the roots no one expected the trees to put out, cracking and splintering around us. 3 months of cutting away roots from pipes and wiring and chasing monkeys out of the galley and peeling octopus out of, well, everything. 3 months and more to go. We're almost there. A few more weeks and we'll reach our allies. Just a few more weeks. Air raids are like their own little pocket eternities. Darkness, the loud silence of 16 people breathing, the scent of stagnant salt air, the lingering aromas of the last meal, and the wet, earthy smell of the roots overhead tickling your nose. Touch is good. It grounds me. Not so much people. People are too many different things at once. Skin and hair and fabric and expectations. Soft cat fur. Velvety octopus. Those are better. Time disappears, and I settle back into my skin. A brief flash of blue among the roots startles me. Suddenly, the world is complicated again, a cacophony of people getting up, talking, boots, chairs, lights, colors. Toothless has fallen asleep, hanging limply half out of my pocket. The little octopus shrinks back, then waves an arm in the air before sliding to the floor and disappearing into a drain. Still overwhelmed by life beginning again around me, I wave back. Dazed, I go back to my duties on deck. Until now, my interactions with octopuses had consisted of fishing them out of machinery, pipes, cupboards, or pickle jars, and inadvertently stepping on them. They turned up shortly after the battle. Below decks, theories ranged from a population of tree-dwelling octopuses brought on board with the camouflage vegetation, along with the green-gray fist-sized monkeys, a smattering of lizards, and 6 different species of nesting birds, to their getting caught in the fishing nets or climbing aboard via the sweep wire or even the anchor chain. I had managed to teach the cats that pest, now designated not just the ration-eating rodents that seem to spontaneously spawn on any Navy ship, but also the little chittering monkeys that sometimes stage raids on the pantry and 8-armed cephalopods. Unfortunately, the cats refused to hunt them ever since Jared got a face full of ink. For a week after, he cursed the litter box whenever he saw one. Word got around, I guess. I make a note on my clipboard to add octopod button pressing to my daily report, then jot down the location of some high-hanging fruit for the night watches. It's another perk of our camouflage. If only the roots and their early warning system weren't destroying our deck, our pipes, and our only gun. I take big, deep breaths of fresh air and let Toothless down to chase the bipedal-jeweled lizards that dart about. I won't have another day watch topside for another 2 weeks. Everyone gets a turn, but we have to stay hidden under the trees, just in case. We wouldn't even get that if the mycelium network activated on its own. Well, it does. It reacts in little blinks to a lot of things, but the rolling waves of the alert only happen if you hit this one specific tree. And you have to pay attention, because after the first warning, the monkeys and birds go silent. But listening for monkey alerts doesn't mean taking my eyes off the kitten. Shit. He probably followed a lizard somewhere. He can take them, but sometimes gets distracted by their long tails and forgets about their front teeth and claws. I start crawling through the underbrush, my trousers catching on twisted roots and the warped, rotting planks of the deck. Monkeys chitter and my breath catches, but they're just scolding me for my lack of decorum. Toothless has a very distinct hiss, like a tinny tea kettle. It leads me to the button board at the tower base, where he's telling a burgundy-colored octopus exactly what he thinks of it. This one's bigger, rippling its arms at the kitten, arching its back and bouncing sideways on all 4 feet in that ridiculous kitten version of threatening. Usually, when an octopus sees us, their first instinct is to camouflage, though they've learned not to stay camouflaged or they'll get stepped on. This one waves. I wave back. Maybe I'll get another job title out of this. Octopus waving duty officer or something. Then it moves over a button on the board. Treat, it says. I've been cat duty officer long enough that some things are automatic. The little bag with the dried sardines we use as cat treats is already in my hand by the time I process what's going on, so what the heck? I pull out a sardine. Toothless perks his head up, ears twitching. Treat, the octopus repeats. I hold out the treat. Suction-cupped arms snake up and grab it, and it disappears under the octopus to wherever the heck its mouth is. Then, because I'm supposed to be training fuzzy black kittens, not cephalopods, I nudge the octopus off the button. Treat, I tell Toothless, and give him a sardine. He grabs it, drops it, and pounces on it, determined to make the kill himself. Little weirdo. I love him. Treat. Something calls out, but it's only a disagreement between a bird and a monkey. I turn back to the octopus, unimpressed. I already gave you one. Treat. I roll my eyes and press buttons. Treats, all gone. 2 of the octopus's arms hover uncertainly in the air, and it slides over to another button. All gone. Yes, I confirm carefully. treats all gone. It slithers away. Toothless has killed his sardine and is gnawing on the remains of its head. I pick him up and hold him to my face. I just talked to an octopus. Toothless agrees and twists to lick my sardine-scented fingers. Somewhere, a monkey calls. Something sails down from the top bunk as I'm putting on my shoes. I catch it reflexively. It's the gray-speckled octopus, or one who looks just like it. Who knows? Stupid pests, the top bunk grumbles. It's Cal, so Rita must have a long watch. I stare at the octopus in my hand. The suction cups prickle slightly as it latches on, and something scrapes my palm. I pick it up by its head and look underneath. Huh. I kind of always thought their mouths were rows of tentacles, or maybe teeth like a suckerfish, but it's a beak. An actual beak like a parrot's. I settle it absent-mindedly on my shoulder and look over at the orange tabby, Stet, who is playing with a mouse and completely ignoring a red octopus turning a combination lock. I sigh. The red octopus opens my footlocker. I go over and close it again. Stet saunters to the barracks button board, mouse in mouth. Pest, she tells me proudly. Good job, I press. I point to the red octopus. Pest, catch. She deposits the mouse at my feet. Good job, she insists. It is a good job, so of course she gets a treat and pets. Stet likes it when you scratch her back. I throw the dead mouse out the porthole and remove the red octopus from my combination lock yet again. Should I throw it out like the dead mouse? Down a drain? They are horribly rigid and impossible to stuff anywhere until they aren't and disappear into cracks even a cat can't get through. I end up just putting it on my other shoulder because I'm running late. I grab Stet and reach for my clipboard on its holder at the head of my shared bunk, next to one of Isla's charcoal sketches and Gren's trading cards. I swallow. Gren didn't make it. Neither Isla nor I have had the heart to take down their cards. Stet squirms, her paws twitching, aching to bat the usurpers riding my shoulders, and oh shit, did I even fill out my report for the last shift? I scrabble at the forms and yes, I did. Okay, good. But I forgot to put the talking octopuses in. So I'll do that this shift and add the thing with the combination lock. Okay. First stop is the kitten room. I'm immediately swarmed by cats who have never in their life had any treats or playtime. This is the best part of my duties as a cat duty officer. While Herc chats, the others demand feather, so I play a bit with the feather on a string. Okay, no kibble today, they're on reduced rations like everybody else. Wait, did I change the calendar in the room yet? No, do that, okay. Kibble tomorrow, I make a note on my checklist. Right, shifts. Stet's off now, Herc's back on pest control below decks, and Lila's got medic duty. She's one of our 2 therapy cats. Jared still needs another rest shift before returning to the engine room. He's the only one who can be trusted not to push the non-cat buttons. Because, well, that would be bad. I'm collecting mashed fish from Cook when the alarm sounds. It's an actual alarm because it's nighttime and the Quetzalcoatlus are not a nocturnal species. Or maybe there are no night patrols because the pilots can't see in the dark. Whichever. The alarm is 3 long, 2 short. A mine. Am I on support duty this shift? Oops, I am. I race to bring the food to the kitten room and convince a clingy Toothless to stay there because it's nighttime and he's small and black and will get lost on deck. And then I run up. Our specialist for mine warfare, Chief Petty Officer Reap, looks like a pirate. I think it's his face, like weathered tree bark, his lips thin over his large teeth. Or maybe it's the eye patch? Not all of him made it off smock. Or maybe it's the sleeping red and green feathered cinnamon crops on his shoulder. I used to think it was a cute snub-nosed bat, but apparently it's a small pteranodon, and it's diurnal, unlike bats or Quetzalcoatluses. Its name is Murray. I skip to a stop next to Able Seaman Isla. Chief Reap side-eyes me grudgingly, his attention on the kite wire, barely visible in the light of a purple lamp. We used to have proper deck lights, but vegetation happened. "Line is cut," he huffs now that everyone is here. "Swimmers in the water." We nod, nervously eyeing the horizon. We're a minesweeper, and a minesweeper clears mines. A minesweeper clears mines even when we're hiding from the enemy after a resounding defeat on a ship that is falling apart. The problem is that sea mines aren't built to be opened. We can't defuse them. And because we're hiding from the enemy after a resounding defeat on a ship that is falling apart, we can't detonate them in the water, like we were built for. That and the vegetation got our gun. But because we're a minesweeper, we can't leave them floating around where anyone could bump into them either. Just because our convoy's gone, just because we can't do a proper formation sweep since our 2 sister ships died, well, the people living on these islands aren't our allies, but they aren't our enemies. They didn't ask for this war, and every mine we cut makes them that much safer. So we have a dozen padded crates hiding under the canopy of trees, draped in vines, and now we'll have a few more because there's rarely only one mine. They're accumulating because the last few islands we got water from were inhabited, so we couldn't leave them on the beach. Not everybody knows not to hit a sea mine with a hammer. So now we are living on a floating island where the camouflage that is keeping us safe from things that go boom thrown down on our heads is also destroying the top deck, which is full of sea mines, which will go boom if it collapses on our heads. Welcome to the Navy. We have a peripatetic ecosystems. A whistle pierces the inky darkness, and Able Seaman Isla and I move to position the crane. It's a bit of a chimera, cobbled together by the machinists, and it's hand-cranked because the monkeys chew power cables. I start as the octopuses flop down from my shoulders and into puddles on the deck. I'd forgotten about them. We get the crane positioned and lower the hook, then, at the diver's signal, hoist it back up. Chief Reap says nothing, but keeps glancing towards the horizon. It's heading towards dawn, another hour or 2 maybe. We need to get near an island, and anchor, soon. The mine is nothing but a gleaming black nothing ball, aureoled against the deep azure of the horizon, its anchor cable dangling uselessly, cut by our sweep wire. We lower it into a padded crate, holding our breaths, eye on where the sky meets the sea. It takes more than a tap to send one off, but the difference between a tap and a hit is not always easy to judge. Chief Reap punches the all clear, and the engine rumbles and grinds beneath us, whining in protest. This bronchital sound is the reason our mad dash to safety is taking months, not weeks, and apparently it's an easy fix if only we could take the engine apart. We stop twice more to hoist up mines, racing rheumatically against the approaching dawn, ears peeled for the chirps of early riser birds, the warning cries of monkeys, the screech of a Quetzalcoatlus. The sky is tinged aquamarine and pink by the time the engine splutters to a halt, and Chief Reap activates the rollers to pull in the otter and kite that keep the sweep wire with the cutters that save all our lives at the right depth, and the Oropesa float that stretches it up behind us. "Hey, seaman!" Everybody stops. "Not you, you!" He's pointing at me. Oh no, what did I forget? The crane is dismantled, the loose foliage back atop, the roller, the Oropesa and kites in their cradles. What? He gestures to a puddle of water cut by the warped wood of the deck. There are 4 octopuses in it, dabbing at each other with their sinuous arms. Not your pets? Oh. I put the octopuses on my shoulders because that's what I do with animals in my hands. But they're not my pets, and I need to go bring Jared to the engine room and get Toothless and do some training before the shift is over. But Chief Reap is looking at me, petting Murray, who is blinking awake on his shoulder. So I kneel down. I only have 2. They come up the sweep wire, and with the mines. Oh, I pick up the two I think were mine. Sir? Get back to your duties, kid. Aye, sir, only... They've been using the button boards, sir. Say what? RJS Fremantle has 6 officers. We'd lost several in the battle and gained Chief Reap and an extraneous lieutenant from the wreck of Smock. They are all currently staring at me. Well, the 2 octopuses on my lap, but also at me. Toothless doesn't like that the attention isn't on him and says so, loudly. But since he's speaking in high cat, no one is paying attention. It isn't their trousers being attacked by tiny prickly claws. We're in the kitten room because it has the widest array of buttons. Skimble, an elderly tortie, is sleeping curled up next to Stet in a hammock on one of the cat trees. Unfortunately, none of the octopuses seem particularly chatty right now. Should I start? Or should that be the captain? A narrow, tired person who's actually only a lieutenant commander because Fremantle is too small to rate a real captain. Toothless bites down hard. Biting, no, I press. This, I know I'm allowed because this is training and I'm cat duty officer. Toothless slinks off, affronted. He meanders around the buttons, tail twitching, then steps on treat. Treat, I agree, smiling broadly, and give him a treat. I squeal excitedly. I think this is his first real press. Then I remember I'm just an able seaman, and who knows what the protocol is when sitting in a room surrounded by all of Fremantle's officers, speech buttons, 2 sleeping cats, a black kitten, and 2 octopuses. No one seems to mind, though, so if that's okay, I put down one of the octopuses near the treat button and press it. Treat, I say, and give it a piece of dried fish. It's the red one I gave a treat to before. Maybe. Then I press Scritches and pet the gray one. The speckled gray octopus slides off the Scritches buttons and seems to be pressing buttons randomly. Smell, bed, all gone. So much for that. Where? The red one seems to have one it likes. Well, in cat training, it's important to affirm even random presses, at least at the beginning. What, where? I press. The octopus undulates its tentacles. Where? It slides off and navigates between buttons, touching them with its arms as if to taste them. All gone. Where? All gone? Yes, it's the gray octopus. I'm sorry, I tell them. It's pretty safe. If something's all gone, people tend to be sad. Cats too. Probably octopuses. Where? Scritches. Tasty. The gray octopus tells me. One of the lieutenants shifts. Well, now that's just nonsense. Maybe. But the thing is, button cat? It's a language, see? It has its own syntax, and it also has a very limited vocabulary because there's only so much room for buttons. The cats use tasty to mean good, or happy, or fun, just like they use litterbox to curse. The lieutenant commander captain sighs. Look, seaman, Paul was it? See what you can get until the end of your shift. After that, in your own time, okay? And if you could tell them to stay out of the machinery, I think we'd all appreciate it. The officers file out to more important things. Chief Reap is still there, feeding Murray mealworms. And Lieutenant Oro. She's the chief machine specialist, a tall, stocky, dark-skinned woman. She probably just wants to see if I can get them to stay out of the engines. Where all gone tasty? I ask. Not sure if I'm saying what I think I'm saying. Yes, all gone. Pests? I don't know their names, and we don't have buttons for them, even if I did. Want where scritches? You're asking if they want to be scratched. Jared isn't very talkative, so Lieutenant Oro doesn't speak much cat. I shake my head. I think they're using where for a place. Question words come at the end of a sentence, see? But there's where all gone, and there's where scritches, which I think means here. We don't have buttons for here or home. We just have specific places like outside, galley, or kitten room. Herc saunters in and heads straight to a water dish. Water, he informs me afterwards. Yes, thank you, Herc, I tell him as he rubs against me. Herc likes to give me a running commentary on his life. I think as I run my fingers through his fur. We don't have a how button. We do have why. Where? All gone. Why? I ask. Ball. I don't understand. It's one button. It's really useful. Ball. Loud, the gray octopus replies. Rude, the red one specifies. A loud, rude ball? Suddenly, Chief Reap leans over and presses, ball, loud, rude. The answer? Where? All gone. He leans back and pops a mealworm in his mouth, chewing thoughtfully. They come on the sweepwires. The mines, I wonder if the Incas are destroying their homes. But how do they know they're loud? Lieutenant Oro asks. We haven't detonated any since they came on board. But there were plenty detonating before. Before the battle, before the patrols caught up with RJS Smock, before we raided some poor island for trees and bonus monkeys, before we set off on a 2-week sprint to whom we hope are still our allies, and that is taking us 3 months. Lieutenant Oro frowns. You think they made the connection? That we take the mines away? Chief Reap shrugs. But why come on board? Water, 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 the red octopus asks. The smaller gray simply plops itself into one of the cat's water bowls and fills it. I take the red one over and settle it into the second one. The chief machine specialist is watching the little speckled octopus turn the faucet with an odd expression on her face. Say, don't they open pickle jars? It's weird to be out in the daylight without a protective canopy of trees, without minuscule monkeys chittering overhead and jeweled bipedal lizards darting over my boots. It's weird to trust the ground beneath me, to not have an ear constantly peeled for a specific monkey cry. The allies giving us asylum want to press Fremantle into service for their fleet, but I'm rather stumped by a floating ecosystem with minesweeper capabilities. So I'm standing on a dock with 5 mewling pet crates at my feet and a bigger crate filled with all the button boards. I also have a tank with 2 octopuses in it. People in crisp white uniforms and lots of jangling medals walk up to me. I remember to salute. Able Seaman Paul, Cat Duty Officer and Chief of Cephalopod Communications, sir. Nope, it's not an actual chief rating, but I'm told there might be one in there somewhere if I play my cards right. It wasn't easy. There weren't enough words. We did add a few to the button boards, but trying to get concepts across turned out to be just as complicated, whether you were recontextualizing old words or teaching them new ones. The first thing, you see, is that octopuses can get into almost any hole, and they can open pickle jars. The second thing is that the octopuses needed a fast ride in our general direction, which was hilarious considering Fremantle had been the ship equivalent of an arthritic granny counting her change whilst you walked, but it was still faster than an octopus can swim. We think they were telling us that the mines were destroying their breeding grounds, or else octopuses at cities nobody knew anything about, because bed was the only button we had, and frankly, none of us had the spoons nor the time to figure out the details. So Able Seaman Isla, who hasn't let missing the upper joints of her right hand stop her from drawing, sketched out what exactly the octopuses needed to unscrew and rescrew inside the engine, and then 2 days later, they were in their new refugee homes, or busy making baby octopuses, whichever it was. And we could actually make significant time during the night. were still patrols, and the deck finally caved in over the galleys, so the monkeys got into the pantry, meaning even less rations, and everyone squeezing into the barracks all day for the last few days. But then we were in range of our allies' anti-air missiles, and Fremantle was still, amazingly, afloat. Now, some of the octopuses are staying. They are hoping to keep mines and ships' anchors away from their homes in the future, we think. The Lieutenant Commander Captain is hoping for a medal, and Lieutenant Oro is hoping for a new Navy Corps with octopus machinists. The cats, I'm told insistently, are hoping for scritches and treats. I breathe in the harbor air with its faint smell of cars and street vendors, and turn to follow the brass. Toothless clambers onto my right shoulder, and I set Gray the octopus on my left, and I'm pretty sure I've forgotten something important on board. Behind me, on what is left of Fremantle, the monkeys chitter loudly, and there is a brief flash of bright blue. Who knows? Maybe I'll get that chief rating someday.
Yeah, Sonia. I'm sure most people come show up for the kittens, but I think they might end up staying for the octopuses.
That was awesome. Thank you, Sonia. That was great.
I had a lot of fun writing it.
It
Only
sounds
imagine.
like you did. I can
You've
tell.
read some interesting octopus stories, haven't you? Some interesting anecdotes.
Well, I love octopuses. I should have brought my octopus mug. I love octopuses, and of course, the whole kitten button board thing is based on what I've seen of Elsie, which I think
Right.
all of you know.
Uh, for
Mary
those of
Robinette
you who don't
Kowal's
know about
cat.
Elsie, yes, Mary Robinette Kowal's cat, who she is teaching with the button board. And Elsie has communicated things like when given a sweater she doesn't like, litter box fabric. Uh, Pretty great stories. As with most animal communication stories, it's just anecdotes. We don't have a whole lot of hard data, but the anecdotes are so much fun. And there's so many great ones about octopus too. But now is not Octopus Appreciation Hour. We can do that later, Sonia, in our own time. Thank you so much for reading us that story. Enjoyed it
Yes,
so much.
absolutely.
And I just want to take that breath to just pull the octopus thoughts back into my head, and then we can hear Daniel. Everyone, that was Sonia Focke with a new story that is up at Correo, where you can buy to read the rest. But once you read the words kitten room, it's kind of tempting, right?
It will
And
be free to read eventually, and it's getting an audio version.
yes, which is not imperiled by this, I hope.
No, I cleared it with them.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, our next reader tonight is someone you may have some familiarity with. His name is Daniel Marcus. Daniel Marcus has published in many literary and genre venues, including FNSF, Asimov Science Fiction, Ziziva, Sinking City, to name a few. He is the author of the novels Burn Rate and A Crack in Everything, the short story collections Binding Energy and Bright Moment and others. A graduate of the Clarion West Writers Workshop, he was a finalist for the John W. Campbell Award for Best New Writer when it was still called the John W. Campbell Award for Best
Which
New
makes me
Writer.
old. Yeah. But
No,
yeah.
it's only they changed it like what, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
So I'm not that old. Good.
No. Spring chicken. He has taught in the creative writing programs at UC Berkeley Extension and Gotham Writers Workshop. He is the founder and co-host of Story Hour, a weekly series of live stream speculative fiction readings at storyhour2020.com. Daniel Marcus, welcome back to Story Hour.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Usually when I'm reading a story, I don't provide an introduction. I really like to let the work speak for itself. But my story tonight does require a little backstory, if for no other reason that without it, some of you might actually never speak to me again after hearing it. So, in 1954, Tom Godwin wrote a story called The Cold Equations. And this is a very famous story. It was first published in Astounding magazine under John W. Campbell, was reprinted many times, most notably in the well-known anthology, The Science Fiction Hall of Fame. Even today,
Hmm.
if you just say the words cold equations in a room full of science fiction readers, in about 5 minutes, about a third of them will be screaming at the other third, and the remaining third will be looking back and forth between the two groups, wondering what the fuck is going on. So the setup is this. The pilot of a small, fast spaceship called an emergency dispatch ship, EDS, is bringing life-saving serum to a colony planet that's been decimated by plague. The mass allotment for these ships has been calculated to the gram, and any deviation will cause the ship to crash or never reach its destination. And the pilot discovers that Marilyn, a teenage girl, has stowed away to see her brother, who's stationed on the colony planet. Sadly, Marilyn's weight has not been calculated in the critical EDS fuel allotment, and the story seeks to convince us, the readers, that in order for the spaceship to land safely and save the many colonists, uh, Marilyn has to be summarily ejected into space. So one take on this story is the thesis is that human values are overridden by the brutal inevitability of physics, that the cold equations in the title, and that this cold reasoning is non-negotiable. We live in a morally neutral universe subject to the laws of physics, deaf to sentiment, and difficult decisions are regrettable but necessary, especially in a frontier society. The girl has to die, there's no other option. It's just physics, man, sorry. The alternate take is that the story is an elaborate piece of clockwork to support the murder of an innocent young woman for the crime of being female. The science is bogus. The story logic is thin as a playing card, and if you scratch beneath the surface, the whole thing just starts to smell. There's many items that could be ejected to account for the stowaway's mass. There's food, water, furniture, bulkhead doors, etc. So the pilot in this alternate take, the pilot is proxy for a misogynist technocracy, and one that is not cold and logical, but visceral and brutal and primal, and it's fueled not by science, but rage, and is willing to go to great lengths to rationalize its dominance, including using pseudoscience to justify the pointless execution of a woman. And this
But
subject,
I'm sorry, Daniel,
yes,
we're supposed to be reading fiction.
yeah, there's that. Um, it's kind of timely right now, sadly. Uh, um, the subtext, according to this alternate interpretation, is so close to the surface that it's just impossible to ignore, and that the real cold equations are not instruments of physics, but embody the calculus of dominance and power. And so my story is kind of a riff on the original cold equations. And after hearing it, you can decide for yourselves which side I land on and whether the story is successful on its own terms, which is, of course, what really counts. And incidentally, if you're so inclined, the original story can be found online at Lightspeed magazine, where you can peruse it because it's been legally reprinted there and you can read it without being complicit in a copyright crime. Uh, my story is called On the Variance of the Cold Equations Under a Basis Transformation, and it appeared in my 2021 short story collection, Bright Moment and Others, from Wordfire Press. Content warning, there's misogyny, murder, violence, including sexual violence. So here we go. The void between the stars was supposed to be silent, but to Barton, the void was the humming in the soles of his feet, the slight vibration in the bulkhead he felt when he reached his hand out to touch the cold metal. The void was supposed to be vast and formless, but to Barton, the void was form itself. The four walls of the cabin, the control panel with its silent array of telltales. The feeling was not of vastness, but smallness. He occupied a tiny bubble of heat and light and air, a bright bead on a great dark canvas. The void between the stars was supposed to be the howling nothingness of end space. But the emergency dispatch ship's memory contained the sum of human knowledge, and Barton filled the hours with history, entertainment, technical training, and pornography. He masturbated nearly constantly when he was on a run. All the EDS pilots did. It was common knowledge, tacitly shared, never discussed, even when they traded files over a secure channel. Barton's preferences ran to snuff and torture. Young, pale women, naked and bound, struggling, while men in leather masks burned their translucent skin with iron brands or peeled strips of flesh from their bodies with long, slender blades. Barton supposed that his proclivities were recorded somewhere in the colonial administration's databases, but he wasn't terribly worried about it. The adage went, what happens in end space stays in end space. Humans who were sufficiently skilled to pilot the quirky emergency dispatch ships, who could also withstand the long empty hours in transit, were, like the stars that hosted habitable planets, few and far between. Besides, it was just brain candy, diversions to fill the void. It had nothing to do with him, with who he was. He thought of his wife and daughters waiting for him in the Connaught back in Luna. Joan setting the table for the girls. The kitchen dialed to Renaissance Meadows, her favorite. Or maybe Octopus Garden. Yes, Octopus Garden. He could see the room filled with shifting green light, the dappled surface far above. The three of them eating quietly, the empty place at the table, his place. A keenly felt presence, everything neat, spotless, everything in order. They were good girls, all of them. One of the telltales blinked red. Movement in the aft storage compartment. No, he felt suddenly dizzy and reached out to the console to steady himself. He looked again. Definitely movement. Something big enough to trigger the motion detector. It could only be one thing, a stowaway. And colonial administration policy was clear on the subject. Any stowaway discovered aboard an EDS shall be jettisoned immediately following discovery. Jettisoned. It sounded so clinical. What it meant, of course, was that Barton would either force the stowaway at the point of a blaster to voluntarily enter the airlock, or he would drag the stiff, cooling body into the airlock while the ventilation system labored to rid the cabin of the stench of cooked meat. This was the frontier, and what seemed harsh and brutal back in the soft comfort of the core was driven by necessity and survival here at the bleeding edge. The Newtonian equations of motion allowed no room for emotion or interpretation. Colonial administration policy was very clear on that subject. It was the law, and there could be no appeal. The little EDS ships were dispatched only in extremely urgent cases. They carried no extra fuel, and the mass of a stowaway really messed things up. Barton had dealt with stowaways on two occasions. Rough, crude men, typical of the marginal types that one found in a frontier society. They knew they were bucking the system, and they knew the consequences, but they thought the rules didn't apply to them. He didn't know their names. He didn't want to know their names. The first one had hidden in the crawl space between the engine room and the cargo hold, and by the time Barton found him, he was nearly dead anyway. Still, he begged and pleaded, wheedled and whined. The kind of man who would cut your throat in a back alley for the change in your pocket, and he was reduced to a whimpering thing, barely human. At the end, he realized that there was no bargaining with the laws of men and nature, and he passively allowed himself to be led into the airlock. The second one came at Barton with a length of pipe as soon as he opened the storeroom door. Barton's blaster was in his hand before his conscious brain had a chance to react, and he burned the man's face off. He had only a vague memory of dragging the 200-pound meat sack to the airlock. The EDS shuddered when it expelled the body into the grayness of end space. Jettisoned. jettisoned, tumbling end over end into the space between the spaces between the stars. This one would be another rough man trying to gain the system, to circumvent the colonial authority requirements for physical or emotional fitness, a new life in the colonies, a fresh start. But there were rules. Barton knew he would have no trouble dealing with such a man. He walked up to the door of the storage compartment. "Come out," he said abruptly. There was no answer. Barton knew he was in there, though. He could picture him hunched in the dark, stinking of confinement and fear, his heart racing as he realized the game was up. But he had no idea just how far over the edge he had stepped. Barton rested his hand on the holstered blaster. "Out," he said. "Now." There was a long pause. Barton heard movement behind the door. He tensed, remembering the last time. He was ready. The door hissed open and the stowaway stepped through, smiling. "All right, I give up." She held her hands up in mock surrender. "Now what?" Barton's hand fell away from his blaster. His mouth fell open. A girl. She couldn't have been more than 16, standing before him in her little white jumpsuit and gypsy sandals. Curly brown hair cascaded past her shoulders, and her green eyes held a twinkle of merriment, unknowing, unafraid. Now what? Now what? Oh, you poor girl. You have no idea. He returned to his pilot's chair and motioned her to sit on the boxy housing of the drive control unit facing him. She crossed her legs demurely and smiled again at him. "I'm Marilyn Cross," she said, holding her hand out. When he didn't take it, she frowned. Her frown was even more disarming than her smile. "Okay," she said, "I'm guilty. What do I have to do? Pay a fine?" "What are you doing here?" Barton asked finally. Her smile faded. Well, I wanted to see my brother. He's with the survey crew on Woden. I haven't seen him in over 10 years. When the Stardust dropped out of end space at Waystation Beta, I heard that the ship would be going to Woden, and I just sneaked aboard with the cleaning bot when nobody was looking. I knew I'd be breaking some kind of regulation, but I'll gladly pay the fine. I can work for my keep. I can cook. Marilyn. He thought of the EDS bay, the little ships in a neat row on one end, awaiting dispatch. There was a huge sign, plainly visible from almost anywhere in the room. "No unauthorized personnel." There was an identical sign hanging above the only entrance to the bay. She couldn't possibly have missed seeing them. She chose to ignore them, and the consequences would be horrible and final. The laws of physics were draconian. They could not be ignored. You couldn't smile sweetly at them, but bat your eyelashes and say, "Now what?" Barton wasn't much of a scientist, but the icy logic of the equations of motion was inescapable. H amount of fuel will power an EDS with a mass m safely to its destination. The same amount of fuel will not power an EDS with a mass of m plus x safely to its destination. Marilyn was X, the X factor. Her in her gypsy sandals, her twinkling green eyes. Remove X and the equations balance. Order is restored. Existence requires order, even in the wild chaos of the frontier, especially in the wild chaos of the frontier. Man's tenuous foothold on the edge of infinity required strict obedience to natural laws. There was no malevolence. The laws were without emotion or passion. Now what? They didn't care about this beautiful young girl in her gypsy sandals. What do I have to do? Pay a fine? They didn't even know about her. They knew nothing, nothing. They simply operated in a plane where the concerns of man did not play a role. Marilyn, he said again. He spoke slowly as if to a small child. Did your brother know you were coming? Oh, no, she said. Jerry's a real stickler for rules. He's a man of the frontier, Barton thought. A man like me. He'll understand. Why are you looking at me like that? Do you know why this ship is going to Woden? Oh, she shook her head. Supplies, I guess. Calla fever. This ship is carrying calla fever serum to Woden. Their supply was destroyed by a tornado. Jerry, is he in group one or group two? No. Barton bent over the EDS console and pulled up the communication logs. Gerald Cross, group two. He looked up at Marilyn. Your brother is on the other side of the planet. He's safe. But there are 6 men in group one who will die if this ship doesn't make it. Well, thank God he's okay. It's terrible about those other men, though. We'll get there in time, won't we? Jesus Christ, she really hasn't figured it out yet. This poor, stupid girl. There was nothing anybody could do. Barton wished it could be different, but the equations that manifested the will of nature were crystalline in their perfection, inhuman, without emotion or malice. He thought of the tornado that had destroyed the Group 1 encampment. Ripping through the installation with inchoate fury, a roaring, thunderous tower of rage that sought to annihilate everything in its path, he imagined himself as a tornado, his head thrust through the clouds, a billowing nimbus, his legs and arms churning funnels of destruction. The land below is pristine and raw, nearly smooth from this altitude, but at ground level is rough with rocky debris and hidden arroyos. The encampment was a shanker, and Barton reached down to wipe it away. Men scattered like mindless ants, stirred with a stick wielded by a malicious child. The prefab buildings exploded at his touch. He cut a great swath of chaos through the encampment. You're giving me that look again, the girl said. He blinked, pulled back from his reverie. I'm sorry, Marilyn. You have no idea how sorry I am. What are you talking about? Colonial administration regulations are very clear. Here, let me show you. He fiddled with the console and pulled up the relevant portion of the handbook. Any stowaway discovered aboard an EDS shall be jettisoned immediately following discovery. She cried out, her hand covering her mouth. No, what? Jettisoned? Are you insane? You can't do this. She stood up and backed away, holding her hand in front of her as if to ward off the inevitable. It has to be this way, Marilyn. The fuel consumption on these ships is calculated down to the gram. If you stay on this ship, we'll crash. We'll both die, and the men on Woden will die as well. I'm so sorry. He held his hand out to her, but she didn't respond, didn't see it. She backed into the wall and stood there, sobbing, tears streaming down her face. Fuel? She said finally. That's what this is about? Fuel? Look, I mass about 50 kilos. How much water do you have on board? Well, it's 2 days in end space to Woden. I've got about 15 liters for drinking water, maybe 10 for, hygiene. My God, that's 25 kilos right there. It's just 2 days. What about food? Well, just these little packets, high density. You need water. 2 kilos, 5? Sure, 5. Oh my God, I think we can do this. This door. She pounded on the door to the storage compartment she had hidden in. 10 kilos at least. Yes. Do you have tools? Um, you must have something. There was a toolkit under the console, and not much, a couple of wrenches and screwdrivers, a soldering gun, heavy duty cutting laser. Uh, I, I, I don't know. God, oh God, oh God. It doesn't matter. 50 kilos. There's got to be something. She looked around. Barton could see white all around her eyes. The chair, she said. Your fucking chair. That drive housing I was sitting on. Our clothes. She ripped down the front of her jumpsuit, exposing her small young breasts. Marilyn, Barton said, walking towards her. Oh God, I don't want to die. You have no idea how sorry I am, Marilyn. If there was anything anybody could do, we would do it. Nobody wants this. The equations were clear. H amount of fuel will not power an EDS with a max of m plus x safely to its destination. The circumference of a circle was pi times the diameter, no matter what. Well, except in end space where it was something else. But that was for the eggheads back in the core. Barton was no scientist. He was just a rocket jockey. And the laws of physics were immutable and clear. Oh, fuck you, she said suddenly. Her eyes were wild. She grabbed his shirt, wrapped her legs around his thigh, began grinding obscenely against him. She kissed him, her tongue seeking his. Barton felt himself responding in spite of his revulsion. I'm still a virgin, but I'll do anything. Her breath was hot in his ear. Anything you've ever wanted, anything you've ever thought of. Barton slapped her hard. She lurched back, holding her hand to her cheek where a red welt was appearing. There will be none of that. She collapsed against the bulkhead, sobbing, rocking, holding her knees. Her chestnut hair spilled down her bare back. Her keening filled the little ship. He walked to her and stood towering over her. I'm sorry, Marilyn. Nobody wants you to die. You have no idea. In the end, he had to shoot her. The little ship shuddered as it ejected the body, a tiny seed tumbling through end space, tumbling forever through the spaces between the stars.
Daniel, what strikes me the most about that story every time is how Barton is so eager to consider himself some kind of maverick,
Yeah.
some kind of hardy frontiersman,
Right.
while simultaneously turning over all responsibility for the bad things he does.
Yeah, and he purports to be a Spock. It's coldly logical, but he's clearly driven by rage, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and he's really more about protecting what he knows and protecting what he has more than he is about anything else. He's not really even talking about the colonists.
No, no, no. It's just all about power, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know anyone who actually likes the story of the cold equations as anything other than a thought exercise.
It's a piece of shit, actually.
I know it's interesting because I feel like it's like the second most responded to story in science fiction, right after the ones who walk away from the Melons,
Right, and
by Ursula K. Le Guin.
it's the subtext is so execrable. I mean, it really,
Yeah.
and it's so inevitable. It's so close to the surface, and it's inescapable.
Yeah.
So,
So,
anyway,
Daniel, that was a good story, and I hope you'll understand and probably agree with me in saying that Sonia's octopus future is better.
yeah, for sure.
So let's go for that one. In the much less distant future of next week, Story Hour will be back with completely human readers, Michael Merriam and Lawrence Raphael brothers. Always a good thing to check storyhour2020.com the day of the reading for any announcements, any changes, learn about upcoming authors. There's a recording page full of handy links. And you can also browse through the Story Hour 2020 page on YouTube to see other things you might have missed. Sonia Focke, Daniel Marcus, thank you for sharing your stories tonight. Thank you to my co-host, Daniel Marcus, as well,
Whoever he is.
for starting Story Hour. And, I think we're all going to have to say goodnight separately and end with Sonia, because everyone needs to see what Sonia is doing right now. It's quite adorable, quite adorabilis, probably. Right? Adorabilis. I think it's technically lavender, but it's adorable, whatever it is. Everyone, those of you with us right now in the Zoom, those of you watching in the future on YouTube, thank you for joining us. We're very happy to share this story hour and our future. May it be a good one with you. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sonia.
Bye.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye.